Almost.
Okay, everyone, we've hit 5 p.m. So I'd like you to welcome to our second green session of the week. And the purpose of this one, we'll focus on models. Just a reminder of the note well. Gosh, I can't read that, it's tiny. There we go. So you've seen this many times already this week. Just a reminder that this is an IETF meeting and all your everything you say and do in this room counts as our contribution. And note really well as before that this is a polite and respectful place, and we expect all the communications and conversations to be had in a friendly and polite way. So our agenda for the second session, today we want to focus on a 1 hour session. We want to focus on the data models. And the goal here is to try and make some progress towards discussing the data models and finding commonality in terms of what sort of base model we would be able to adopt in terms of the Green Working Group. Today we start with the power and efficiency, energy efficient model from Jan, presenting remotely, then one on energy measurements and streaming devices. I think that might be Rohit as well. And finally, there's 20 minutes on energy management, which is split over 3 drafts, and then a 5-minute wrap up at the end. That we're going to do, and we can skip over these. I think, so the plan is, as before, we're going to try and progress this work in parallel. We will try and have some virtual interims, so I'll poll for those after this meeting. And we want to also make a lot more progress on lists, so just encourage that as well. And I think that's all. So any agenda bashing for this session? Don't see any? Okay. Then I think we can move straight on and start with Jan.
Hello, everybody.
Well, we just, George, going to, I guess that you can hear us as well, right, John?
Yes, now that you're talking to the mic, I can.
Yeah.
And you should have slide control.
Very good, thank you. I see that. Yes, so for those of you that were here on Tuesday, you know that we were planning to present both Philatelist and PowerF in a single presentation, and then realized only hours before the slot that was not the case, that we had it split up in 2. So that's why we made this, went through the presentation and skipped some slides in the last time. And now that I had a few more hours after the last session, I could add a little bit more. So this is basically the same presentation as on Tuesday, but we will focus on other slides, and I have added a little bit more. So this one is now focused on the PowerF part of this combo. We have the Philatelist draft that was focusing on a framework, and this one is focusing on specific things that you can measure and control on devices. We want to move this PowerF draft into the Green Working Group because this is where we believe the right people are and where the timelines match the best. This is a discussion we had already on Tuesday, so I will move forward. We have presented already the core principles that stand behind Philatelist and by extension PowerF. And I won't go through them again because we did this on Tuesday, but I just want to restate that these core principles apply just equally as much to PowerF as they do to Philatelist. So this is a high-level picture photo of the Philatelist architecture. So we have many components that collaborate using configuration to build up a sort of network of providers, collectors, aggregators, processors, displays, and decision-making components in this architecture. And just to show this picture, which is about Philatelist, because I want to show where PowerF fits in. So PowerF defines a device interface for how you can collect information about the device at the bottom. And if you remember what I said on Tuesday, I said that we cannot really rely on interfaces being available of any particular kind that we define today on the devices that are out in the field. It will take something like 10 years before anything we say in this room today will be widely available in existing networks. So we have to use the existing interfaces that are out there on the devices today in order to collect interesting information. So why am I then introducing this PowerF interface here? Yeah, this is because some devices may be developed that want to support this, and they can of course implement PowerF directly on the device. But it's also possible to use the PowerF interface on the controller side as a proxy for devices. So this is standardizing the controller view of what devices report. And then you would have a plugin that sits below this interface that actually figures out how you report these things that PowerF prescribes on the particular type of device that you are talking to. So this is the sort of merit with a plug and play, pluggable architecture, that you can keep using standard interfaces and introduce new ones, even though you don't need to change the actual devices out there. On the left-hand side, you can see that Philatelist defines the idea, the concepts of sensors and controls. And you would use Philatelist to point out where you can find these existing sensors and these existing controls on these devices. And you would use Philatelist to add metadata to these information streams that you are collecting from devices in the network, so that you know what unit it is and what precision it is and what is included and what is not included, and so on. And Philatelist supports the concept of dashboards, where you can take a collection of such sensors and controls and group them together in a way that you can reuse. But Philatelist does not contain any concrete dashboards at all. It has no definitions of any sort of collection at all. It just defines what a dashboard concept is and how you can interact with that. Then on the right side here, you have PowerF, which defines 5 different levels of actual dashboards that a device might implement. On level 8, the dashboard consists of a single leaf that reports the total device power at this time. And if a device supports only that, then that's what you can introduce into the dashboard for this particular device. But the device might be able to support more than that. For example, level 1 plus, reporting power per subsystem. And the definition of what a subsystem is up to the device or to the modelers that are using the device. Level 3 adds power control also, so you can tell the device to go into a lower power mode, either a sleep mode or a lower service mode or something like that. And still on PowerF, this is very much an abstract concept with power controls. You are not telling the device exactly what it should do. You're just giving parameters for how this control can happen. Like it's okay that you only support this amount of traffic now for a while, and you can, as long as you can get back into normal service operation within 500 milliseconds. And then the device can, or the component that interacts with the device can figure out how to implement that level of service degradation on this device and power saving. So that's the idea with the PowerF. It's very abstract when it comes to what the device should actually do. You need to have a component that translates these commands into something that's specific to each device type. There was also a discussion about the division between Philatelist and PowerF, and specifically if Philatelist, which has a wider scope, could fit into the green working group. And the history behind this is that when we were developing the PowerF draft, we realized that some parts of this are more generic. So being good IT architects, we wanted to split those parts out into a separate draft and framework. So that's what became known as Philatelist after that. But if that's a problem with charters and so on, we can, of course, bundle them back together again, make sure that this is the PowerF framework, that is only used for reporting power numbers and so on. If that makes it easier for process reasons, that's fine. And PowerF is totally built on philatelist. You cannot really use PowerF as it is defined today without philatelist. Philatelist defines basic concepts, and PowerF defines specific implementations of those concepts that are relevant for power efficiency measurements, like defining units for volts, kilowatt hours, kelvins, and sensor types, which is like sensor type power in current power, that means voltage times amperes, and collect them into standard dashboard collections. We had some discussion about how this integrates with work that is going on in other areas or in this working group as well. For example, it has a connection to Ivy, so that you can point out that the data that you collect for a particular part of the device relates to this particular place in the Ivy inventory tree. It has connections with this frameworks for how you collect metrics and which units they have and so on. You can declare how accurate your sensors are and things like that. And just as we said on Tuesday, we would ask if the working group would be interested to adopt 3 drafts that are closely related. It's the philatelist, the PowerF, and the draft KLL Yang label TSDB, which is the integration towards time series databases. And I think I will stop there to leave a little room for questions, maybe.
Are there any questions on this draft? So one of the things that came up in the last session was, affected last green session, was whether or not flatlist would be in scope for the charge for this working group. Mahesh, Diego, and I met, was it yesterday? To discuss this, and I think that we need to have a more detailed review of the documents, so we'll do that after this meeting and figure out if there are parts of this that would fall into the scope for this working group, or if there's parts that are outside. From my perspective, I think it'd be good from the understanding from the working group whether or not they feel like there's key components of this architecture and framework that are necessary to progress the work within green or not. And so one question I have for you, Jan, is in terms of the data, the PowerF part of the data models, the data model that's relating to like control and exporting of power information, is that something that could be done in a fairly generic way using groupings such that it could fit this framework and also be used more directly? Is that flexibility you think would be feasible, or do you think it's a necessity quite tied to the PowerF draft?
It is PowerF that is defining this. That would be close to defining such groupings. It has dashboards instead of groupings, but it has that type of concepts. And I would be very surprised if you wouldn't find that PowerF fits into the green working group. I think PowerF is exactly the classical sort of thing that you would find here. The debate is whether you do it in this more philatelist style, which is more generic, can do other things as well. But PowerF is an architecture where you have many small plugins, and I think that is key to the sort of collection architecture we need here, because we need to collect, at least my point of view is that we need to collect and control data from devices that are out in the field today. And if so, then we need to have a lot of flexibility in the architecture, and this sort of plugin architecture is needed. So you can certainly use groupings the same way as you do these dashboards in PowerF today without philatelist. But we need to have a flexible architecture where you can have components that are stacked on top of each other. And I think philatelist supports that well.
Okay, to put my question in a slightly different way is, I think any architecture work we do, and certainly we do anything along the lines of philatelist, that's going to take a while, partly in terms of working out the charge and also in terms of doing the work. And my question is really whether the data model work that we do has to be bound to that, or whether we can do that sort of somewhat independently. And the architecture, if the working group decides to do it, and the AD and chairs decide it's in scope for this working group, or some of it's in scope for another working group, can that follow along later? Because I don't think we want to spend 2 or 3 years defining like the affiliate list as a base part of this architecture and then PowerF on top of that. I think that might be the wrong direction. So it's trying to work out if it can be decoupled or not.
There was a time when PowerF did not depend on affiliate lists, so certainly things are possible. But I think there is a significant difference in the sort of utility of those models compared to what we have here today. The flexibility is much reduced, I would say.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then I think that we're done. We'll ask Chris. Is it Christoph?
That's next. It's me. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just pass control over to you 1 moment.
All good. Okay. Okay, so hello, I'm Christoph. I will be presenting this draft about a data model for energy measurements related to streaming. So it's an initial draft we worked out in a group which is called Greening of Streaming, which regroups a set of companies and partners which are working in the media streaming space. And so yeah, and here the objective is, well, to present you this model. So there might be bugs and its limitations, but the objective is to really collect feedback so that we can improve this model. Now the goals and the design choices that we took for this draft is, well, we want to report power consumption of streaming capable devices. So that's the consumption which is instantaneous or also historical measurements. And we want to identify the sources and be able to reason about the power consumption. This is why we integrated in the model first. Well, we distinguish the global system power versus the component level power. So in the component, you will typically allow to report the power usage of the different devices that you have different cards or functions you have in your device, so the network card, the GPU, CPU, and so on. And then we wanted also to add information about what is the role of this device in the streaming workflow. Is it an encoder? Is it a router? Is it a cache for streaming? Is it a decoder, a set-top box, and so on and so forth? So that we can then reason about where is the power consumption in your streaming workflow. And then we also provide informations related to the streaming metrics. So you will see afterwards. So how many streams a device is handling and so on. And finally, last thing, we wanted to be able to, for devices that are not able to provide power measurements, to give you other metrics that might allow you to derive or have some intuition about what the power measurement might be. So now I will go through the different parameters that we have. So we first have an identifier of the device, so that we can identify each device which is working, which is within in the workflow. Then we have added a device type. So this is what I mentioned before. Is it an encoder, a decoder? Is it a cache? Is it a set-top box, and so on? And this allows to identify what is the role of this device in the streaming workflow. Here's probably some work needed to extend this list or have a comprehensive list of what the different roles are. And then the device can also tell you which are its capabilities in terms of measurement capabilities. So is it only global power? Is it component power? Or can I only report usage? Now, when we really come to the power readings themselves, so okay, we have a timestamp so that we can correlate data coming from different devices in the streaming workflow. And then we have for each component, well, the reports of the power usage. So here again, here's its first set of devices. Maybe it should be extended. And then in addition to just the watt, we can also report the usage. So this would be when a device is not able to get the watt of the power of a given component. By giving the usage, we might derive or calculate something for that device. And then the last thing is reporting, well, streaming metrics. So this is by giving you information about, well, how many streams is the device providing, what is the total bandwidth used by those video streams. If it's a device with a screen, you could report a brightness or other things. And if you have access to encoding parameters, when it's about the video streams you're handling, you could also give them there, and then yeah, and okay, and this list again, it's an initial list. I think it's worth having a discussion here. What are the right metrics here, and the idea is to extend that over time and to have a relevant and comprehensive set of streaming metrics. And yeah, I think this was my last slide. So any comment, feedback, and discussion on this draft is welcome.
Any questions?
Jan.
Oh, Jan.
Thank you. So this would be a model that will be implemented by individual devices. Is that right?
Yeah.
It will be running on the service. Okay. So especially if you say that a comprehensive set of parameters would be developed, it might take some time before this is implemented widely in the field, then I guess.
Also, yeah. I mean, yeah. Maybe we have to find a way where you can it's kind of flexible. You can add up features along the way, but for the moment, it's not what we have here.
Very good. Thank you.
That's me, not as chair, just as a participant. First, I have a few questions. One is that in a project we were involved some time ago, we have had contact with an organization that is called Greening of Streaming.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to do with them?
Yes, that's so. The draft has been worked out within this group, Greening of Streaming.
Okay. But well, this is good to see that it's not there is convergence there. And this is something that because of the energy model, I was looking at it. What part is specific of streaming? I mean, that you look at it and it's power consumption by a device. But if this device would not be, I mean, I understand that your goal is about streaming and applying this to streaming services, but most of the structures and the metrics are.
Maybe there's some
generalized, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe there's some things that are general, and I mean they should be used or should be defined elsewhere, and we had to have a general thing about global usage, component usage, and so on, and power usage, power drain. But then what is interesting is to have those streaming related metrics. So first, what is the role in the streaming, in the delivery chain and workflow of the streaming? And then well, streaming metrics, what we see on these slides, what type of content am I handling, how many streams, and so on and so forth, so that we can then relate that to the streaming workload.
So we would be talking, in my mind, we'll be talking about a sort of a part of a base model, and then the aggregation mechanisms for collecting, I mean, for integrating data from the different components in the stream.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
And finally, this last slide, these streaming metrics. I understand that you're interested on that. Something that looks a little bit out of scope of the green model, but this is something that I guess that we can sort out as an appendix. I mean, if at the end we're moving into in my view, if we're moving into a document produced by the green group, probably this part should be. I don't know how to say it, but not part of the main body of what we are trying to specify, which is useful and usable by all means, but probably will be a little bit out of what we are looking for.
Okay.
The same way that if we were talking about, I don't know, an optical device, and then we were talking about the number of wavelengths that can be used or whatever. Is simply.
Yeah, but since we have, I mean, there was this mention about the streaming use case, and so it's, if you want to have something specific about that, then it's interesting to have such kind of things.
Yeah, is the connection between the metrics, I mean, the energy metrics and the other metrics, I guess. That's what is, yeah, sure.
Hi, Christoph. So I guess thinking or looking at this model, I think it splits clearly between some of the stuff you defined here would fit well into a base model, and then the sort of streaming metrics, as sort of Diego was saying, I see that as somewhat separate. And I think that could still be in scope of this work group. Potentially, we need to consider that in terms of use case and things. It seemed like I would have a base model that excludes the streaming metrics and have this as a separate module that augments in. So I think that could work quite nicely. And the question is really whether we want to specify those and include that in the scope of the working group. And then it's sort of trying to take the base part of what you're proposing here and aggregate that in with what the other authors are presenting and proposing here. So in terms of the other different drafts, can we get a common solution for those base parts and agree to that? But thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I think we've got no other questions, so we'll move on to the next presentation. Thank you.
Oscar González, Telefónica, presenting on behalf of all the authors. So here today we will present a set of documents, even though we will focus more in one, and we will tell you the reasons why soon. No, I know the process. It's not fast. Okay, perfect. So first of all, just a quick recap on the charter of the Green Working Group and what are the intentions to see that we are aligned to that. So here, the working group wanted to concentrate on developing young models for the measuring, the reporting of the energy metrics at different levels, at the component, at the device, and even at network levels, so all the three levels. And also, these models to allow the operator, someone who is controlling the network or the device or whatever, to optimize the energy usage in the network. Okay, so yeah, these capabilities. Also, in this work item, we have the definition, and standard definition of these young models. We mentioned the different levels: the device, the network, etc. So, what are we doing? So we worked some time ago in an individual document with everything together, but also looking at what has been proposed. There are many different models that have been proposed around for different purposes. So we say, let's split the draft in 3 parts and have one common part that can be reused among different energy-related modules. Okay, and this one will contain the common characteristics. So that are the features, the identities, the types, and groupings. So all of the others can reuse this one. And then The other two documents that we are proposing that uses this one, but there might be other documents that use this very first one, is an inventory-related module, okay, that contains, okay, here is focused on the, how to call it, more static information. So it is, what are the capabilities of a network element or of a network or even of a component related to energy efficiency. And for example, will include, okay, which are the different thresholds in terms of temperature or voltage, or which are the energy savings modes that are supported by that device. So it's something that will not change in time unless you update the equipment, of course, or unless you do an upgrade of firmware or something that the capabilities update. But it's something meant to be more static. While the other document, the last one, the topology energy management, so this is focused more on the dynamic information. So it's information that will be, for example, the power consumption at a certain point in time, or the savings and what has been saved at a certain point in time. And this can be either at network level, that you aggregate all the information of the network, or at device level. So we had a GitHub tracker where we are compiling there the different issues, and that we are going, so you can take a look at it. So here how it is designed. So as we mentioned, we have the way of we have designed is to have this IETF energy efficiency common, so the other modules can import on those. Okay, so these are, and then we have on the one hand the network inventory that has these capabilities from the device. So for example, the supported energy saving modes, method, etc. And this one, the idea was to rely on existing working IETF. So luckily, a couple of years ago, IETF started the network inventory working groups, the IB, and there you have the list of devices that are in the network, and each device also has, or is structured having a list of components. So it fits very well with the purpose here. So we can have that the network inventory model, or the network inventory with energy saving capabilities, augments the base IB model and enhances it with these items from the common module. So, for example, these energy saving modules, the temperature, the power, and the bounds, etc. And also, on the other hand, we have the network energy saving. This we will use as a base. The proposal is to use as a base the IETF network module, and there we add this extra, or this information, this energy-related information at network level or at node level, with the total energy consumption, the energy saving modes, and also management capabilities that you have in that device. And at component level also we have can reach that granularity to have the real-time power or even voltage, temperature, etc., reporting from each device. So between with the help of several modules, we can build the whole picture. So I wanted to focus today the presentation on the common energy module part. I think this is what is, I believe, is the most useful for the working group at the beginning. So it includes features, for example, the energy savings. So it indicates that this, whatever it is where you use it, device, component, etc., supports energy saving. Some identities, which are the energy saving mode. Here we are proposing 3, but this can be, of course, discussed among the working group to see if there are other energy saving modes. Here you have Mahesh, if you want to make the question. Okay. Energy saving methods. So we have here also, which here we are proposing several of those, but also these are subject to be discussed and added in the working group, and the energy power state. So these are the 3 identities that are defined: the type, energy saving operator, that is power on, power off, and some common groupings that are to be reused. So energy consumption data, energy saving modes, which are all the list of modes and methods that are available, the power parameters, including the threshold, and statistics. So all the different statistics here. So here, what we would like is that the working group reviews this common module. I think we think is the piece that will serve for all the other young modules that are needed in the for the activity in green. So, yeah, and the question that we make to the working group is if you think this is a good approach and it can be the common building block for the other youngs, and if what is currently defined is sufficient, we need to add it to support all the drafts that we have already seen with different needs. So, for example, we have seen before the mode for the streaming devices that they can safely use some of the modules defined here. Also, we could, let's say, have some commonalities with the PowerWave module here also, that there are some parts also that might fit in the common. So here is one question if it's self-attached, and also if it's the, and also we need to keep aligning with the terminology. I think it's, you are, I hope that for next IETF you will already have the terminology, a working group document. So we have a fixed terminology to align. Okay, so here there might be still not be full alignment to there, and here they are the issues. So just open to questions, and I don't know if it's too early to adopt this, but I think we think this is the common module is the approach to begin with.
Mahesh, this is more of a question for the chairs, and I am probably also relevant to the previous document. Maybe we should try to gauge an interest on these documents by at least polling to find out how many have even read either of those set of documents.
Yes, I mean, I think hopefully we'll have some time at the end, in which case, yes, definitely, that's one of the things we'll do.
Okay, so questions on the...
Yeah, Mohammed?
Hi. So I have a question on the Yang model. We are defining Yang model for different devices, components. So is it in the scope or that if a device or a component, how much energy or how much power is consumed by device or a component for a certain task that is running on that component or a device? So do we specify a specific task that for example, that we are running like on that component or a device that are consuming how much energy?
Is there a question? It was a question about scope of the working group. Is that what the question was? Like, is it
I mean, yes.
Because in the draft, the scope, the last scope was the component level that we had in Ivy. We didn't go any further than the component level, even per task. That was not.
So I think that that's an open question in terms of the charter. So I think the working group needs to sort of consider that question as to what level of granularity we try and go to. I can't remember, I discussed this earlier with Mahesh and Diego, but in terms of whether you do, actually with Joe on the list.
Yes, this is what we took there, and the granularity was component level, device level, network level, but I don't know if further than component or...
But you could do software components, for example, as well.
Because if we are talking about configurable energy efficiency, then we might want to know how can we configure per task, like what tasks are consuming what kind of energy.
And some of that in terms of configuration models, you've got your general configuration models for devices anyway that can control that configuration. But I think we're also looking at power efficiency configuration models that may be quite generic or may be quite specific. It just depends. I think this is also the open questions of the things that the working group needs to tease out and understand.
So, I mean, okay, so one last thing. Then I think because we have a discussion on use cases, then how would we fit the use cases here? And because each use case will have different, tasks running, and they will expand this Yang model for use cases, right?
So again, I think there's two solutions to that. One is we want to get a common model that works for all those use cases to get the core data out. I think it's a separate question as to whether we need to build any extra augmentations in for specific use cases or not, if they're regarded as being in scope for what the Green Working Group wants to work on, or we design that common base model to be generic enough to allow it to report the information that's required without requiring any extension. So I think it just depends on what data is needed. And I think that as we get towards adopting a base model and then expanding on that, we will have a better sort of direction in terms of what those extensions might look like.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Tony?
Just one comment on that. I'm really concerned that we're going to try to boil the ocean here. If we try to deal with cross-product every possible query, we're going to end up rewriting something that looks like SQL. No, thank you.
I don't know if that's a question to me, to the chairs, or to Diego. Oh, sorry, to Oscar. I think. In terms of your comment, Tony, I completely agree. But I think the goal here is finding a common model and finding a common way. So, hence the question that I asked to Jan earlier on was, in terms of like the affiliate list model, is can we build common structures that work both in that architecture and more generically that do not have the same sort of constraints? So, I think we can find some commonality that means that we don't have that issue, and then you've got augmentations later that can be built onto that. So I don't think we have to boil the ocean.
Just in addition to that, while Oscar was presenting something that came to my mind is the fact that we are asking as well for identifying the metrics that we have to define, which are the metrics that make sense. Even in the case that we limit this with the kind of metrics, if at the end the only commonalities in the model are about identifying those metrics, I think that would support the effort of agreeing that we are trying to express a consumption of power per unit of time, a consumption of power per unit of data exchange, whatever. These kind of things, even that should be common, because otherwise we will be comparing the archetypal comparing of apples and oranges, and this is something that we should avoid.
I also support the notion of having it common and being able to define these basic structures, and then you can plug it whatever you like. You can plug it in a device, you can plug it in a network. So don't bound to my model only applies for a given structure, but no. As you say, the energy consumption metrics that should be, at least the base one should be common and should not be tied to some specific route.
So I had some quick questions. So I noticed in terms of the models you put up, I think that are they all sitting at the moment at like the network layer, so they're network level models rather than device level models?
Well, the other two, the inventory and the topology, yes, they are network level, but the common one is agnostic. You can use it at device level, you can use it at the level that you want. The common model is not defining a network specific model. The common model is aimed to be used even in the device model.
But that would just be groupings and things, will it? Yes. So I think you still need another model to instantiate that on the device.
Yeah.
Yes.
But here we are not covering all. Yes, we wanted to we extracted all the commons from the network, the two network modules, and we put it in the commons. Maybe the common has also some room for other things, of course.
Okay.
But yes, we did not have a device. It was not the scope that we had.
Okay. I think, Tony, you still in the queue, or you finished? Oh, Tony's finished. Okay. So thank you, Oscar. I think that's all the all the presentations we had. We've got 15 minutes left, so I think there's some time for some discussions. Now, as Mahesh suggested, I think we'll do some polls just to see how much how much the working group has read these documents and knows where they are. So I'm just going to poll for the 3 presentations. Let's just do this one at a time. Oops. So I'm going to first poll on the first draft that Jan presented, which is the PowerF draft. So Polifer, have you read that draft? And yes, if you've read it, any version of that, or no, if you've not read this one. Just give a little bit of time for people to find the poll app and poll. I like the no opinion poll. Your no opinion as to whether or not you've read this document. That's good. I'm not quite sure how to interpret that. So we've got 9 to 17. So basically, a third of the people who are participating have read this draft. So I think it would be good to say that if you've read it, can people start sending comments to the list on these documents? Because that'd be really helpful to move these discussions further forward. Right. So then I'm going to poll on Christoph's draft that he presented. Okay, so this was the second draft that was presented by Christoph. Have you read the draft Newman green streaming Yang? I said any version. I can't remember if it's even, I think it might just be a 0.0 draft, is it? I can't see, I haven't got it here. So have you read any version of this document? A little bit longer. Okay, so sort of fairly similar results, slightly lower, but not much difference in there in terms of, again, it looks like about a third of the people have read it and 2/3 haven't. And then in terms of the third one that was presented, Tony, do you want to speak to this now? No. So then going to poll on well, there's 3 sets of drafts here. I'm going to do it slightly more generically. I'm going to say, have you read either these 3 drafts or the previous one that it was based on? Because it was split out from a common draft. So just to be clear, it's either having read these 3 drafts or I can't remember the name of the common draft that it was derived from. Is that to hand? So draft CW BGP green, and then there's 3 documents. And that one seems to be a bit more split, so 50-50, half, so a few more people have. In addition to that, there's a couple of other documents. I shall wait for a little bit longer. Okay, so, Mahesh, yes?
Mahesh, follow-up to maybe the poll, and just as I was sitting there and thinking, for the people who have voted yes on having read any of the documents, if they feel that the document is in their mind, something that the working group should continue progressing, or if they have any opinions about that particular draft. I know it's kind of difficult to capture in a poll, and I'm just trying to get a sense of, is it that people have not read it because of time or because they don't feel it's interesting?
Potentially, I would like to see more discussion on the list first. I'm worried about being a bit preemptive at pushing stuff off, and whether it's at this stage where we're able to say, yes, we have strong consensus around like forming one of these as a base draft or something. I don't know. I'm a bit reticent to go that
Yeah,
way.
so
Don't you, Diego?
Sorry, the suggestion was not as a way to figure out what we are not going to work on. It's more to figure out, is there interest in a particular document? I mean, we had 3 documents, more than 50%, except for the last one, said not even read it. So I'm just
Yeah.
trying to get some interest of, does the work group think these are interesting documents?
Well, the other way of doing that is to say for people to come to the mic line and say which versions other than the authors and things like that. Tony?
I just want to remind people, draft League Green Power. I think I presented that in Dublin and asked for working group adoption back then. Happy to move that forward and happy to collaborate with other folks.
And that's also quite a good time. Jan, I'll come to you in a moment. I also want to ask for that document as well to find out how many people have read that document as well. Yeah.
Jan, Wando.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think all of these documents have merit. They are bringing in things that I think are valuable to the solution. But I think we have not yet figured out how to combine all of these things into a more coherent view of the world. We need to combine them in some way, I think. And before we can figure out how this combination should be structured, I think we need to agree on these basic principles. What are our goals? I proposed a number of different fundamental principles, like should we be working with existing equipment or not? And I think if we could have an interim maybe about what are the basic principles, I would propose that.
So definitely the intention is to have some more interims. But I'm going to run the poll for Tony's draft at the same time. In parallel, I'll answer your question. So yes, we plan to run some more interims, and from discussing with Diego and Mahesh, our idea is that we will try and choose a common slot, and maybe arrange an interim on a roughly monthly cadence, and then we can put in work topics and things that are of interest to the working group to try and get more energy and progression. I'm slightly nervous of doing that in the sense that I don't want to kill discussions on the list, because I think that's where we need to get some level of energy, where we are reviewing these documents and sending comments on the list and discussing them, because then I think I'll start to see where the consensus is and start to see where we can find commonality, because otherwise we're going to spend a long time discussing these and not sort of progressing them. And Mahesh, as you can see, is quite keen that we start to adopt documents and move forward. So just a reminder, there's this poll open on Tony's document. So that was presented at the last meeting. He has presented in Ivy previously as well. I'm just noticing there's 9 yes and 6 no, which is like there's less people now who are sure whether or not they've read that document. We've got nothing else. So again, the more people read that, which is good, but roughly the same amount as one of those other drafts and things. So we've got some interest in the working group, but not a huge amount. It'd be nice to get more reviews and more comments on these documents. I think in terms of next steps, as I said, we'll have these interim meetings. The proposal is we have focused topics. I think we want to get the use cases document tied down. I think we want to get terminology tied down. It'd be nice to try and get at least a focus of the base model, again, directions or get that tied down. And I'm not quite sure how the best approach of that is. We've got different choices. We can have a bake-off on the different drafts that we could use as a base model. We can try and do a design team. Authors can get together and have discussions and collaborate and decide, actually, we can work together and form a base draft and come together and say, look, we think we can find a common solution. And that third approach, if possible, I think is probably the quickest way to expedite the work. Anyone got any comments or suggestions on what they would feel as an alternative way forward or a preference for that? Okay. Any other comments? I think we're sort of like open mic time. We've got 5 more minutes to use up.
So if there are no other comments, my take is that, well, we will get back to you on the list with a proposal, with a double proposal, one of about these slots that Rob was mentioning for some periodic discussion on how to progress. That includes starting with the use cases, continuing with the terminology, and trying to identify these common principles Jan was mentioning. And since it looks like there is no strong preference right now for a particular way to go, very likely we will make our choice and propose it to you, just to whether we go for a design team or whether we let the or we bet for letting some of the models evolve in parallel and try to make them converge in the future.
Mahesh, looking at both Tony Lee's and probably Newman's document, I see a little bit of overlap, not a little actually, quite a bit of overlap. And I was wondering if that would be one area that we can look as seeing whether there's commonality between the two drafts that can be to bring together.
Which one? The other?
It's the
Tony's
Newman.
Newman. Okay. The one from Stream. Well, personally, I have identified or I have in mind a few regularities that I think we could take advantage of, but I would prefer to have some time to mature a little bit my thoughts before. So, you done?
I think we've got no other questions. We will call the meeting to a close 2 minutes early. Thank you.